Good evening and welcome to Flat Earth United Kingdom. Joining me this evening is Daphne Rimmel. How are you doing, Daphne?
Hi, Nathan. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. Not too bad at all. Now, we had a little chat off air, and I explained to Daphne before we started that my first and opening question is usually, how did you find out Earth is flat? And the reply I got before we even started the show was, I hate that question, so I'm going to ask it anyway. How did you find out Earth is flat, Daphne?
Oh, you know what, Nathan? You're such a firecracker. It started when I was in middle school, and I began taking very advanced adult classes for geology and physics. I was a very, very weird and strange child, and I started wondering about certain things that they were talking about in the textbooks. And some of the things, particularly about the moon, didn't make any sense. And I started asking such intense questions that after less than a year, I was removed from those classes.
Sorry, I was fiddling around with the share link. My apologies. So you got kicked out, physically removed, not allowed to come back.
Well, I had a lot of questions about the moon and the earth and what they were saying. And a lot of the things that I'm mad about today, I was mad about between the ages of 13 and 14. Them saying that they know what the core of the sun and the earth are. It pissed me off as a teenager, and they didn't like that. But they also didn't like that I was wondering why they didn't know anything about the moon, but they were acting as though they did. And so how I ended up cross-referencing it was very interesting, because I was in 8th grade science class for normal times, and then at the end of the day, I went to my college classes. And in my 8th grade science classes, the science teacher would say, we don't really know where the moon came from. We don't really know what the moon is doing. And I want you, as young teenagers, for homework to go and theorize, bring back your answers. Where do you think the moon came from? Where did it originate? Just all of these different things about the moon. And I was like, wow, so we don't really know. He's asking us to theorize because we don't really know. And then I'd go to physics class, and I'd go to geology class, and I would think to myself, well, why are they saying that they know when just, a couple hours ago in 8th grade science class, which they didn't know I had, I was getting asked, where do you think the moon came from? Well, they're acting like they know where things came from and what's going on when they don't. And that's not science. That's not science at all.
So you're saying you don't buy the whole story of another planet smashing into Earth and smashing into a million pieces, giving us an oversized iron core, coalescing into the moon, defying gravity. You don't buy any of that then?
Well, that, among other things, I don't buy. There are other theories, such as the moon came out of Earth. Somehow, I guess, the Earth just shat and gave birth to the moon. That's a theory that they have in the science books. But in the adult college books, they don't tell you how little they know. They tell you what they know is fact. And that's not science, because we don't know what the core of the sun is. We don't know what the core of the moon is. We don't know what the core of the earth is. We don't know what the core of Uranus is. And they're saying it's filled with liquid diamonds. We don't know that. They're making this up. And it made me so mad. Like, even as a kid, it made me so mad that they were making this up. And I started wondering about it then, is what they're saying true? And here's why I started wondering, because I had always wanted, like, a live feed, just a picture, something of the round. I wanted this my whole life. I was like, oh, where's it at? And I would go to the NASA television station, and it was just, this much curvature, a little bit of a satellite off, like a little bit of a wing off of the ISS station, and just a and there wasn't any live feed of the round earth or the sun coming. Just nothing. There was nothing. And it made me so mad. And I wanted something so tangible. I went to the internet and I printed out an image that was clearly a fake, and I just taped it up on my wall because that was the best I could do.
So this is a long time ago. You've obviously since then started actually putting those images into software to start pulling them apart, and you've documented that, which I absolutely love. I've watched all your videos, but I forget which the very first one was.
Oh, you didn't watch the first one because it's beauty tips.
No. Oh, right. Is that what it is? Is that why it escaped me? Well, no, that's a good subject, though. I mean, I think I put this in the email when I first contacted you, which is that you've got a very unique angle because of your tips on health and beauty. And that, for a lot of people, is never going to be an audience that they're going to capture. I'm never going to capture a makeup audience, but you will. And there's far more popular YouTubers making videos about makeup than there are about flat earth. So to me, that makes it super special what you're doing. It may not interest me because I'm already into flat earth and I'm definitely never going to be into makeup. But as I say, there's loads of people out there that will be and will come to your channel through that tangent. You're thinking, yes, that's a good question.
There's such a delay. It's so hard to know when to talk, and I don't want to talk over you and be rude. And I don't like that delay, although this technology is rather wonderful, by the way.
It is. I mean, to think that we're overseas talking to each other, a few seconds delay aside, it's amazing technology. The fact that we can do this on our couches, I think, is simply fantastic.
I agree.
I suppose I'll rephrase my opening question to: what was your first flat earth video?
It was either Mark Sargent or ODD, but since it was over a year ago, I can't exactly be sure. Mark Sargent really helped open my eyes, but I think that it was ODD's videos that really gave me the goosebumps. And then after that, just everything, just all the videos, especially just like the personal experiences, like Carly Sunshine or Cal Waters. They just, grab their camera, flip it open, just talk right into it and say, here's my thoughts on blah, blah, blah. And that alone inspired me, because I didn't have the skill to make videos like Mark Sargent or ODD. But I did have the skill to just crack open a camera and talk about what I've been through.
I really love your video logs. I mean, that was exactly how I started. I didn't have, I say that, I was trained in editing at college, but it was all, tapes and nothing to do with the stuff we use now. But I was quite fearful of doing exactly that. You want to just get in front of a camera, and it is dead easy to just click record and upload to YouTube. But keeping it concise, your videos are all about 5 minutes, sometimes 3 minutes long. That I absolutely love. A small amount of information, concise, make your point and get out of there and leave them to it.
I really do make videos that are longer, and people have requested longer videos, but to be quite honest, I'm so sensitive that at the time I'm done filming 3 to 5, 4-minute videos, I'm literally frazzled. I'm ready to cry almost. I can't go anymore. I want to be able to film longer videos, but I think that will come in the future.
Well, certainly some of the subjects you're covering, they're not just flat earth related. I mean, the one that I was on the edge of my seat for was the AIDS scam. You've done a couple of videos on that.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, just my mute button, sorry. Yeah, just a really controversial subject that most people have got absolutely no awareness of whatsoever. I had a little bit of awareness of the subject. So to hear somebody who's in the profession doing it was eye-opening, to say the least.
Yeah, actually, in addition to just 1 or 2 of my flat earth videos, my AIDS videos are doing my best, especially in duration of length. So they're really those videos keep the audience's attention more than any of my other videos.
I'm not surprised. I mean, I can remember those AIDS ads from the 80s, with the great big tombstone.
And they caused you quite a bit of fear, didn't they?
Absolutely. I remember being terrified into it. I'm sure there's plenty of people. It reminded me of my getting an AIDS test, and I had to specifically ask for it. You go and get these sexually transmitted diseases tests, and they give you a whole barrage of them, but I had to specifically say to them, can I get an AIDS test? And they're like, well, why? I was like, well, because I want to check whether or not got AIDS, you know, why wouldn't you? And they gave me a full barrage of questionnaire, trying to put me off getting tested, like really trying to dissuade me. And I was quite shocked. I thought they'd be, oh great, you know, good on you having some, being quite conscientious about your sexual health. Not at all. It was more a questioning session than any tests, any physical tests or blood tests. They did do that in the end, but only after a long barrage of tests about your sexual habits. You think they'd just take blood and send it off, but no, that's not how it went at all.
No, in fact, if you go and ask for a test, they will think that the first thing that's wrong with you is that you're crazy, because there isn't an AIDS test. There is only an HIV test, and you cannot be considered an AIDS patient until you have a diagnosis of HIV plus something on top of that, like the flu or like a hangnail. Like it's really simple. So yeah, if you go and you say specifically like, yeah, test me for AIDS, they don't, like you say, they portray it as though that would make you a responsible individual, but that's not the case. They think that that makes you a crazy hypochondriac or a sex addict, and that's the people that they target. And this is what I mentioned on Mark's show, which you should have listened to, by the way, is that I was raised by a mother who was a prostitute and a hypochondriac, and she thought all the time that she had AIDS. And she would go and she would ask to be tested for AIDS. She was tested multiple times. She never came up positive. But the number one thing that they were really curious about was just like, you know, fill out this paperwork about how much anal sex you have or how many sexual partners you've had and things like that. And I noticed the same thing. Whenever this conspiracy was unraveling, I had a friend who was in a lot of trouble, and they had to go to some DUI classes. And in order to get into the classes to be rehabilitated for alcoholism, they had to answer all these questions regarding if they've ever had anal sex with a prostitute, if they've ever had anal sex, how many people they've had sex with. Totally unrelated crap, right? And I asked this person, I'm like, you know what they're doing, right? They're trying to find people that have the disease that they've made up. They're really trying to find it, and they're really curious about people's sexual habits, and that's what they really want to be able to monitor and control. And that's where the condom conspiracy comes in, and a lot of people don't want to talk about that.
Well, that's a completely new one, other than you describing the literal process of what's happening. You know, you're putting a petrol-based chemical inside yourself. Aside from that, I've got no clue. So that's a new one on me. Tell me all about the condom conspiracy.
Well, it actually is going to end up being a series after, I guess, I'm done with the AIDS hoax, or maybe inside the AIDS hoax. It's really, really long. It has a lot to do with a conspiracy to divide men and women, a conspiracy to make men and women not really trust each other. Like, for instance, you shouldn't be having sex with somebody you think might have a disease in the first place. So that makes condoms completely irrelevant. You really shouldn't be having sex with somebody you think might have a disease. And the condom conspiracy goes so deep, and it goes into feminism, which is another cancer I'm going to talk about. There's just so much. I'd like to also mention the whole point about gay people. I mean, the AIDS conspiracy, or the AIDS hoax and the condom conspiracy, is kind of like marketed at gay men. And I've done a lot of research on this, and I've done actually a lot of interviews with people just for my own research regarding this. And it looks like it's not necessarily that you can have sex with somebody and catch a virus that gives you AIDS. That's not how it works. What happens is that over a long period of years, I guess it would be like maybe even a decade, semen that builds up in the colon actually blocks the absorption of nutrients, minerals, hydration, all of that. And because of that, it puts people at a predisposition to get a diagnosis for a disease that they have an impaired immune system. It's not a virus. It's not something they caught. It isn't sexually transmitted. However, it is sexually related. They're totally different. And so what they like to do, just like with flat earth, and people hate when I combine these two things, but trust me, flat earth and AIDS go together, hand in hand. Hand in hand, because they tell you all the time, you know, you're spinning on a ball. AIDS is sweeping the globe. That's such fear mongering. Like, you're not only afraid because you're spinning in space, but the person sitting next to you could have a virus so deadly it's considered a plague and nobody knows about it. It's so insidious and ridiculous, and it's done for profit. And that's why I like to combine them. It just makes me sick. I can't believe how afraid people are and how it keeps them basically, you know, with their wallets open. Yeah, does that have a red ribbon on it? Here's some money. Oh, there could be an asteroid headed toward Earth. Here's some money. Oh, your friend, one person that you know out of your entire life died from AIDS. So let's go do a walk. Here's some money. Oh, this person I'm about to have sex with, he could possibly have AIDS. Better get a condom. Here's some more money. Oh, I had sex with somebody and didn't use a condom. I might have AIDS. Need to go get a test. Here's some more money. And it all comes down to money. And that's what I really want to tell people, is that it's all about the money.
You mentioned it being attributed to homosexuality, but it did get labelled the gay plague.
Yes, and it has. Okay, so there's a lot of things that are marketed to the gay population. And again, I'm saying this completely neutral, by the way. You don't have to be this way or that way to have an opinion on this and see what it is, because it just is what it is. And I'm not homophobic. I've actually interviewed people that I love. My gay cousin, for instance, is one of them, and I've asked them, like, you know, tell me about, you know, the things that go on. And he said, you know, poppers are really popular, and they use poppers as a method of making sex better or easier. And they don't know that poppers are directly related to damaging permanently their immune system. And the more they use, it's like an accumulative effect. And so they have connected HIV and AIDS with the gay population, or I guess you would say I don't know, whatever you want to call the people that are gay. They've targeted them and made it seem that it's all about this disease, when it's just basically poppers, nutrition, and then the semen and the colon. And when I say nutrition, it comes down to a lot of them fast. You know, they do enemas, and then they fast so that they can have clean sex for as long as they'd like to. And all of this inhibits their nutrition. You can't absorb nutrients when there aren't any in your colon. If your colon is clean, you can't absorb any nutrients. And so they take all of these symptoms, you know, the FDA and whatever, big pharma, whatever you want to call them, they take all the symptoms that are created from these particular lifestyle choices, and they make it into, this is a disease. This is a disease you can catch. Here's prophylaxis. And then here's a disease that you've caught. Here's a campaign to, you know, go on a walk. Here's a ribbon for it. Here's a product to give a donation. And you see more about donations and you see more about condoms than you hear anything about patients with AIDS. Where are the AIDS wards? I have yet to be in a freaking hospital where there's a ward of AIDS patients. They've got a ward of Alzheimer's patients. They've got a place for the diabetics. They've got a place for the new mothers. Where is the pandemic? Where is the epidemic of AIDS? Where is the AIDS wards? There aren't any.
I've seen the propaganda for them, though. I've seen plenty of newsreels where they show you children. It's normally with babies, so they'll refer it back to the ward that's got the HIV positive babies on it. And then they'll show you some very frail babies.
Yeah. And the last time as a nurse, I heard anything of AIDS babies was on a show made by Genji Cohen called Weeds. And one of these guys asked Nancy Botwin, "Oh, you're wholesome now? Are you have a regular job? You're cooking for your family? Are you nursing AIDS babies?" And she's like, "No, it's not that far yet." And I was wondering, you know, I've been in quite a few hospitals. I've never seen an AIDS baby. Not one.
It's a test for its platelets. I mean, I'm not medically trained. I've no idea really what I'm talking about other than what I'm repeating from what I've read. But they're testing platelets. And am I right in saying that you could get a test done at one clinic in the morning and it come up positive, and then go to a different clinic in the afternoon and get a same test and have it come back negative?
Yes, it's a test for T cells, and the reason that it can be different from here and there is because the what do I want to say? the standard. So the standard for passing or failing is different from country to country, or possibly region to region. So if you were where you are now, there in England, and you got tested, they could be like, oh, it turns out you're HIV positive. And then, in a week, you could fly to Australia and get a test there, and they could be like, it looks like you're perfectly healthy. And it's not like this definitive plague, this definitive virus. And speaking of virus, I would also like to mention Dr. Raznick, who has proven time and time again that not only are AIDS and HIV not related at all, but HIV as a quote-unquote retrovirus, retroviruses have never killed anybody. That they've been harmless. And so what they've done is they've decided to play on people's ignorance. Retrovirus sounds horrible, so they use it. They just want to make people afraid. That's all they want to do. There's nothing that people should be afraid of. But when they're ignorant and they're told, there's this virus, this plague, and, it can be transmitted through sex, it creates this bit of fear. I remember as a kid, my parents were talking about AIDS, and I thought, wow, this is really terrible. So basically, before I can have sex, I have to be tested. He has to be tested, and then maybe we can get married and have a relationship. That's how prevalent they made it seem. But then I watched my mom and my sister, one of which was a literal whore and the other was just kind of a slut, and they never got anything but herpes or warts. And I thought, that's all I see in the emergency room too. When an actual prostitute comes into the emergency room, she has gonorrhea, maybe some syphilis, maybe some crabs, maybe some herpes, maybe some warts, possibly even an unwanted pregnancy. But the fucking thing she never has is HIV or AIDS. How is that when she is out blowing dick for a living?
Yeah, I don't have an answer, but I do have an answer for why people think that, and it's because of the propaganda. So is this presumably where you link it to Flat Earth because of things like the movies we had here in the UK, Train Spotting, which has just had another a second incarnation of the movie come out literally this year. I think it's in cinemas now, actually, Train Spotting 2. But it's a movie about heroin addicts, and obviously AIDS features in the movie. And I've not seen the second movie, but I mean, no doubt that the AIDS nonsense will be in there, along with in plenty of television shows. I'm sure everybody in the States will remember a movie called Philadelphia, which was primarily focused on the HIV and AIDS virus. So yeah, this is presumably where I'm putting words in your mouth, but is that where I'll phrase it as a question, is that where you draw the link between Flat Earth and AIDS?
There isn't a specific place where I draw the link. Like it is connected 125%. There's no difference. If you talk to a random person on the street, their main idea in their head is that we live on a spinning ball. AIDS is real. We know of it because Charlie Sheen has it. Prince died of it. Magic Johnson has it. So definitely it's real. And then obviously all the websites ending in .gov. It's only websites ending in .gov that are telling us these absolutely ridiculous things. So it's all this information coming from the government. You live on a spinning ball, and there's this epidemic, and there's this virus. There's no proof of any of that. There's no measurable curvature. There are hardly any AIDS patients. They are making this shit up.
Right, and it's all fear-based, basically. That's what.
Yes, and it's all profit and fear-based.
So from Flat Earthers, we'll come back to Flat Earth because that's obviously the main subject we're going to be talking about. But again, before the show, in the short period before we started, we also talked about another medical procedure, which happens to small boys, which you find particularly offensive. Maybe you'd like to talk about that a bit.
Oh, yes, of course. Circumcision. I don't even know where to begin on circumcision, except for the fact that I'm really glad I was born a female in the United States because I didn't have to be subjected to that.
Yeah, John Le Bon recently mentioned it on one of his shows, and it's something, like most people, I'm aware of it, but it's when somebody phrases it in the way that it's taking a small child that's literally just come into the world and mutilating the most sensitive part of its body before it's even conscious of where its surroundings.
Yeah, exactly. It's absolutely horrendous. Well, you know, in nursing school, they require every student nurse to do a particular amount of time in a nursery, and they have to witness at least one C-section, at least one natural vaginal birth, and one circumcision. Ideally more if they can, but at least one of each of these things. And I had to witness one circumcision. I would not witness another. I could hardly make it through the first one. It made me cry. I collapsed. They found me in a cleaning closet on the nurses station. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't believe that that kind of thing actually happened without anesthesia. And then I just went on a mission to try to find out, like, is this really as necessary as they say? And it comes back again to the AIDS hoax and the condom conspiracy. That's all tied into circumcision. You know, they say that circumcision minimizes a man's chance of contracting AIDS or HIV, which is absolute horseshit. Doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Well,
and
I've never heard that. That's a new one on me. They say that circumcision helps you combat an immune deficiency virus.
Yeah, they say that it makes a man less likely to contract it. And also, they say just generally that it's healthier. But ideally, the penis is supposed to be covered, the glands, the head of the penis is supposed to be covered. And when it is permanently made available, things can get into the urethra and cause urinary tract infections. It basically opens up the penis and the baby boy and the grown man to quite a lot of trouble, but they pass it off as if they're making it better. It's more appealing. It's cleaner. He won't have to, you know, wipe his own dick. I don't know. They make it seem like boys aren't capable of personal hygiene, perhaps, or that women absolutely, they prefer this. And as a woman, I've had both. I don't prefer circumcised. I do not. Like this could be a rant in itself. Foreskin is amazing, and if anybody out there is thinking about circumcising their son, it would probably be because they have never made love to a man that was whole.
It goes right back into the Christian translations. I remember my father did wrote a play about a guy called Tyndale. And one of the parts of the play was explaining that in the books that were given to the Christians, there was a great big elaborate story about Jesus Christ being circumcised, whereas in the original Hebrew, it was just one sentence: the time came that the child should be circumcised, or something like that. So therefore, you've got the idea that Christ was circumcised.
Wow. Well, I don't touch religion, and I don't have any kids. So I probably shouldn't have an opinion on the matter, but my opinion is that no matter what they think Jesus did, it is wrong. And if they were going to do it, listen, Nathan, if they were going to do it, if that really was what they thought was healthy and beneficial, why do it without any anesthesia? What in the hell? What kind of barbarians are we? If that's really the medical procedure, basically the plastic surgery cosmetic procedure that you want for your son, why force him to endure it without any anesthesia?
I mean, it gets worse. I mean, this is way off what I thought we'd be covering, but there we go. The subjects are getting better by the minute, so I love this. I remember as a very, very young child, my folks knew a programmer, and I don't know what the guy's name was, but he was transitioning from male to female, and his female name was Amanda. Get that, Amanda? Terrible choice, but there we go. So Amanda would, you know, she looked like a woman, as to all intents and purposes. She'd walk in and you'd think woman until she spoke, you know, and she'd tell you about the vocal cords being stretched or electrolysis. But one of the things that really stuck in my mind as like a 11-year-old boy was this girl explaining that because she was circumcised, she had to have a part of her anal tract removed and sewn onto the tip of her penis, so that could be sewn up and then turned inside out. So in other words, without foreskin, the operation, at least back then, I don't know about now, wasn't possible without foreskin. So she had to have a part of her bowels on the end of her penis for quite a substantial period of time for it to heal enough, for it to be sewn up, to be turned back inside out. And this is the bit that stuck in my mind. her explaining that the chances of prolapse were that much higher as a result of this initial operation. And you can imagine hearing this as an 11-year-old going, what's prolapse? You know what I mean?
That's terrible. What was I don't understand. Are you talking about like a foreskin restoration?
Like I say, I was 11 at the time, but I remember it specifically being part of her back passage tract having to be removed and sewn onto the end, and having to stay like that for a period of time, so that would be the bit that would be sewn up when it was turned inside out, as I understood it. So that might have changed since.
I have no idea how they do that kind of surgery. You mean I have no idea. I don't know. But I do know that if there's a man out there who was circumcised but would like to get his foreskin back and therefore regain sensitivity and better sex, there are, you can stretch the foreskin back out. It's called foreskin restoration, and you can Google it and do it. Unfortunately, foreskin restoration will not replace the natural oils that were already there, because whenever the circumcision happens, the bit of skin that is removed contains a lot of subcutaneous glands that provide a lot of oil and moisture for the head of the penis. And so, yeah, the person who was circumcised and would like to restore their foreskin, not only do they need to do foreskin restoration, but they need to moisturize the head of their penis with maybe like a coconut oil or something to try to restore that moisture, because a lot of the lost sensation comes from the lost moisture after a circumcision, because that part of the penis is not supposed to be exposed. It's kind of like cutting your eyelid off and then leaving your eye to dry out. It's not supposed to be exposed.
I mean, we're talking about some pretty controversial stuff here. Is this potentially going to affect your career?
I've ended it for this. This is my new career. YouTube is my new career, and I have put my nursing license on deactivate so that I can go forward and tell people the truth. And since January 1st, YouTube has been a full-time career, and it will be my full-time career. And my goal is to have 100 videos before the end of this month.
Wow. So you're really cranking it up and cranking them out.
Yeah.
So I understand you want to do it as a career. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I have exactly the same aspirations. I mean, I do still work, but I would love to do YouTube full time. I like making videos. You get people out there that will criticize you and say, "Oh, you're monetizing your videos." And it's like, well, as far as I'm concerned, there's a million YouTube channels out there that are talking about the moon landing like it's something real, and they're monetized. So frankly, they need the pitchforks, not me. Yeah. Still got to make a living, unfortunately. That's part of the system we can't unplug from. I mean,
well, have you seen A Call for an Uprising's channel? A Call for an Uprising did a video on Zachary Hubbard, and he made it very clear. I don't know if you know A Call for an Uprising's channel, but it's one of the most amazing channels on YouTube. It's got plus 100,000 subscribers, and he pumps out almost 5-6 videos a day sometimes. He really pumps it out. And he made a video on Zachary Hubbard, and he says, my channel is monetized because I'm not a paid shill. However, Zachary Hubbard lives in this particular house here in this particular park, isn't paid to pump out this much content, so who is supporting him? And it made a really good case for people who have monetized videos and their authenticity, because I monetized my videos from day one, and though I've made like almost $20, I'm really happy. I'm really happy with it.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd necessarily draw the conclusion that somebody not monetized is a paid shill, because people have got all sorts of financial backgrounds. Some people are better off than others. Some people literally have a bee in their bonnet for people having adverts on the truth. And fair enough, everyone's entitled to their opinion. It doesn't necessarily make them a paid shill. And I could understand somebody putting a case together for almost anything these days. The amount of crap that's put against me, you see it and go, well, at least I can see where you've drawn that conclusion. It may not be true. So is it specifically to wake people up using flat Earth? Is that the main purpose of the channel, would you say?
Well, the main purpose of the channel is just an outlet for me, whatever it is that I want to talk about. And, it seems like right now that it's a lot of flat Earth or it's a lot of beauty, but I've got over 100 of, actually, I'm sorry, 100. I've got over 1,200 ideas for videos. and they cover probably about 300 different topics. I'm really diverse, and for the longest time I thought that that was my weakness, and now I'm realizing that it's my strength.
Oh, absolutely. I've had this conversation a few times. You never run out of things to talk about when you find out everything's a lie. How could you ever
Yes,
run out of subjects? Everything's up
exactly.
for grabs suddenly. You can talk about 100 different things.
Yeah, I have videos coming out about the corset conspiracy, the condom conspiracy, and then obviously I'm finishing up my AIDS hoax videos. I'm going to be continuing until I'm dead, my flat earth videos. I'm going to be also sporadically doing beauty videos. My beauty videos just don't do very well because my audience is 85% men.
85. So you've got 15% women. I'm doing slightly better than you on my percentage of women. I think I'm at about 19% or something like that. I noticed Jaron mentioned his ratio once, and he said he's got something like 3% women or something. Really, maybe not as bad as that, but something horrendous. Very, very low.
Yeah,
Well,
I'm in that 3%.
Well, that's something that I definitely think is necessary. We need more female minds in this arena. It is a sausage fest, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, I feel like if I start talking about my opinions on feminism, that I could help start to wake women up. I feel like women are, it starts early in school. Girls are, they're too well behaved. They're too ready to absorb the information. And the boys who are, the guardians of consciousness, they don't have any taste for school. They're bad. They throw spitballs. They squeeze butts. They skip class. And it's just a battle, basically, if we could just get the boys to act more like the girls. And by that, I mean, they just want the boys to just sit down and swallow the lies as well as the girls have. And so the reason that conspiracy seems to be dominated by men is because women are into it. Women are into the truth. They were brainwashed long ago. And when I talk to women about this particular topic, I've talked to some people that I'm related to, and it didn't go very well because they're women. And when I talk to men, they get it right away. They're like, yeah, I totally get it. There's no measurable curvature. They'd make a lot of money if they had lied about X, Y, and Z because then they'd have all the control, and they get it right away. It's the women that don't. It's the women that are, I don't know what they're doing. They are so brainwashed into thinking that the earth is a spinning ball. I don't know why it's mostly women. And I guess I feel, I don't know, I feel different than most women because I don't feel like them. They feel like they're oppressed and they don't want to raise their kids and they don't want to clean their house and they don't want to cook the food. And that's all I want to fucking do. I don't know why they feel like they're oppressed or they feel they're not the privileged ones. Women are the most privileged fucking things to ever walk this plane. And then we've got feminism telling them, you're oppressed. No, you're not. Get in your kitchen and juice your carrots and go to your garden and pick your fucking flowers and enjoy your life. I don't know why we have this division between men and women that we've fallen for because, movies and TV and media say that it's there.
Well, we touched on the transgender agenda earlier and the demoralization of family values and now literal values of our own sexuality are rising.
Yes,
And
exactly.
That's what it's all about, I think. I mean, where do we go from here? What's the solution in terms of, we can't stop people watching MGTOW and feminism videos. They're very, very popular.
No, we can't. But you know what we can do, Nathan, is use what little freedom of speech that we have left and make YouTube videos that are authentic and touching and gripping and say things that people are afraid to hear, people are afraid to say. When I'm filming my videos, I'm about to cry when I'm telling you this. My husband cringes the whole time. He's like, oh, I can't believe you're talking about this.
I'm loving this. This is brilliant. I've been waiting the whole time for somebody in the chat to ask, what's she drinking? And it just happened. So
I'm drinking some cider that may or may not be spiced.
I'm use that
really, my husband wants me to do this.
Tell us a bit about your chlorophyll drink, because that's featured heavily in your videos.
Oh, well, I've actually made a playlist for it, so if anybody wants to know what it's about, I have a playlist just for chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is, I don't know, I thought when I start my videos I would promote a product that I loved, that didn't matter if I was sponsored or not, that I used no matter what. And I thought, you know, chlorophyll will look really pretty on camera, and people really liked it, so I went with that.
Well, the thing that immediately caught mine and probably everyone in the audience's attention if they're watching your videos is, I think it said something like, chlorophyll equals good sex.
Yes, it does.
Well, okay, give us a bit more information. Why?
Okay, well, what does it take to make a penis hard?
Blood.
Exactly. And chlorophyll will help you build your blood volume so that you will have harder, longer lasting erections.
So what does it do specifically then? Because I'm sure it doesn't increase the viscosity of the blood, so...
No, it increases the volume. It contains a lot of copper, and so what you do is you mix a tiny drop of chlorophyll with water, and then you drink that. And your blood is made of two things. It is made of water, and it is made of nutrients. And you need water and nutrients to make blood volume, and the more copper you have, the better your red blood cells will be, the more nutrients you'll absorb overall. And so chlorophyll equals good sex because it will increase your blood volume. So what you need to do is drink it every day over the course of maybe like 2 months, and you will have noticeable results.
And what is it?
It is the blood of plants, and sometimes, depending on the brand, I don't promote a specific brand, but depending on the brand, it is made from either wheatgrass or blue-green algae, and they're both really good.
Cool. So there's no particular brand, just look for, what would you say, if somebody was to go out and go to their health food shop and they wanted to make that drink, what would they purchase? Would there be specific?
Liquid chlorophyll is all, just your regular liquid chlorophyll, and there's probably hundreds of different brands.
Cool. But you're on the cider at the moment, so it's kind of, it's not the green drink tonight.
Yeah, I actually thought since I had white cider, I could make it green, but I didn't. I wanted to just do it regular. I don't want to do things just for show. If I have a green drink, it's because I'm actually drinking that green drink. It's not just because it looks cool. If I'm drinking wine, I'm drinking wine. If I'm drinking just clear water, I'm drinking just clear water. I don't normally just do things on my set just for appearance. It just normally is what it is. Everything that you see behind me is, these are my things. This is what it's like. This is my stuff.
I mean, one of the books that you've covered that, frankly, I've never even heard of, you spoke about Atlas Shrugged and said that it was a book that you'd got flack for just reading. And like I say, I've never even heard of it. Can you tell us a bit about Atlas Shrugged?
Atlas Shrugged is one of the most controversial books that has ever been in print. Atlas Shrugged, a lot like Flat Earth, has been, you know, marketed to people in a negative way. Kind of like, you know, I'm sure you've seen, if you don't have TV, I'm sure you've seen it in the videos on Flat Earth. They replay like clips that TV has, you know, like Flat Earth is, you know, like I'm so stupid. Maybe I thought the Earth was flat. And they do this thing, like it's like a preemptive ridicule. And they do it with Flat Earth, and they do it with Atlas Shrugged. And I have lost probably 10 really good friends because they came into my house, they saw I had Atlas Shrugged, and they walked out. They've never talked to me since. And I've asked people, like, you know, just message people on my phone, like, hey, have you ever read Atlas Shrugged? They don't reply. They never want to talk to me again. They delete my number and forget I completely exist. And it's all because they've been programmed to think, you know, that's a bad box. I don't want to look in that box. If you look in that box, you're a bad person. And I looked in that box, and I have to say, Atlas Shrugged is one of the best books I have ever read in my life. And though it is over 1,000 pages long and takes quite a bit of time to read, I urge everyone to read it. I do.
Yeah, I posted a link to an audio book that was on YouTube. In your video, you said you couldn't find one, so I had a bit scour and found a really new subscriber that stuck it up, I assume, because he's breaching copyright. But I stuck the link in. Hopefully, it's still there. But as you say, just the audio book, I think it was 24 hours long, read.
Yeah, it is so long, but it is really good. And even though it's so long, you don't want it to end.
What is it that makes you praise the book so much, or you see flat Earth connections in it, or what's the general premise? I know you can't boil it down to a 30-second soundbite, but
oh, it's so complicated. I mean, the ideas within Atlas Shrugged are so enormous. And Ayn Rand, and no matter what kind of a bad name she had to be some sort of a genius to create this basically individual universe. Like, she created a whole universe for this book. She created music, people that wrote the music made it a classic within the book. It sounded so real to me. I was like, who's this guy? Is this song even real? She made all this shit up, and it was incredible. I do see flat Earth connections, but I didn't see them originally. In fact, originally all I saw were political connections. It's a very political story. It's very right-wing. Most people don't really like it. But I read it as a bleeded heart hippie, and it made me see things very differently. Not only is the title very alluding to flat Earth, but the book is itself, and you wouldn't know it until you started to question those particular things. Just the idea of Atlas shrugging. I mean, he's got the world on his back, and her idea is that if he just stands up and shrugs that round ball, he'll be able to walk free. And isn't that exactly the truth that flat earthers have been trying to say?
Sure. I just had a quick ask of the chat. I was like, who's heard of this book? Because I hadn't, and sure enough, every person in the chat's heard of it. I'm the only ignorant one here.
It's a very famous book.
What can I say? I haven't been out much. So let's bring it right back. We're right at the end now, or close to the hour. But flat Earth itself, what is it that resonates so much with you about the Earth not being a globe?
That's a good question. I guess just I mean, obviously I've seen some incredible things on videos, but my husband and I have done our own particular experiments, and with my own eyes. Here in Colorado, it's not like everywhere else. You know, where you are in England, things are pretty flat. Where I used to live back east, things are pretty flat. You can't see it though. You can't see it. And here in the Rocky Mountains, from my doorstep, I can see literally hundreds of miles before there is another mountain. And there is so much curvature that should be there. There's so much curvature that should be accounted for, but there isn't any. And I live really high off grid. I live really high on a mountain or a mesa, some people would call it. And from, I don't know, I guess probably 1,000 feet elevation, I can see there's an interstate and just a long valley. And I always open the door up and let the dogs go out to do their business. And I say to my husband, I'm like, look, there's no curvature. How come we didn't notice that? Like, we didn't even know, as people who believe that the Earth was a ball, that there should have been noticeable curvature from here to there, and that there isn't any. We can see for literally miles. And we have another house even higher off grid, up at about almost 10,000 feet elevation. And from there, we've taken some pictures that can really prove that there isn't any measurable curvature. Here in Colorado, we have a bit of an advantage over other people with our perspective because of our landscape. When you climb up a mountain or you climb up a mesa and you can see so far, your own eye, it's not just, a video, it's not just zooming in, it's not, there's no GoPro lens. You can literally see how flat things are. And it doesn't do anything except make you feel how, stupid you were for believing that the Earth was a ball.
Yeah, I like to use the term obvious and observable.
Yes, obvious and observable, exactly.
How about axial rotation? Is that something that you like to have a little dabble with, debunking or otherwise?
What do you mean? There isn't any.
Sure. I mean, is it a topic that you like to talk about? Is it something that you go into the streets and declare to people that we're not spinning, we're completely stationary?
No, I quit breaking the #1 rule of Flat Club. I hadn't ever broken it. until I called up one of my nieces, my favorite niece of all, and I told her, honestly, what I had thought, what I had researched, what my husband and I had done as far as experiments, that the earth was flat, and she went fucking nuts. And there is no way that we will ever be able to restore the relationship. She went so fucking crazy, and she's the smartest person I thought I ever knew, and there was no way of convincing her. So there is no way in hell I am going to go to the streets proclaiming that the earth is flat. The reason that I have a YouTube channel, or I guess one of the reasons, is because it's an outlet. It's an outlet for me to say how I feel and talk to other people that feel the same way without jeopardizing my real life relationships. I live next to a couple people that love me and adore me and have literally no idea that I'm doing this, and they will never know. They will never fucking know. They are going to go to sleep every night and believe that they live on a spinning ball and think that I think the same thing. And I'm not going to try to change that. There's nothing I can do to change that. If I were to try to change that, it would end in catastrophe. Or, yeah, I don't want to do it.
You're in Colorado, right?
Yes.
Where I've got Bob in the chat from Globebusters, or Mr. from Globebusters, as I like to call him. He's asking whereabouts. Maybe you don't want to disclose that info.
All I usually say is that I'm high off grid, high altitude. I'm kind of close to Aspen, but I don't go any more detail than that. I don't even have a real address. There's no address to be had. I actually just have a post office box, so there's really no way to describe where I live anyway. I live on a very, very high mesa in Colorado, off grid.
But you're fully wired in. You've got internet. You've got electricity. You're not a caveman.
Oh, we've got satellite internet, by the way. Satellite internet, which I even called and asked them. I've called 4 times to inquire about if this internet connection really comes from a satellite. No, it actually comes from a ground-based thing over in Vail.
Did you catch that? I think Jaron looked it up. I forget where his reference was. I've got to stop referencing Jaron on every single show. What can you do? Anyway, he was talking about the disclaimer that it got about ground-based communications, saying that in many instances it's far cheaper to do it from the ground. They're quite upfront about the fact that your satellite TV, or in this case your satellite internet, is coming from ground-based towers. It's not coming from satellites in a lot of instances, and they're happy to admit that.
Yeah, they just decided to drop Dish off of satellite. So they're like, hey, here's your satellite internet. Oh, you mean satellite dish internet? They just dropped the dish off of it and make it seem like it's flying out in space and it's really hard for us to maintain, and you might need to pay some more to help us get up there to fix the satellite. Oh, all the lies for profit absolutely make me sick.
We got a priceless one here in the UK. I think it was in the late 90s. We had 2 different satellite communication systems, but one did say it was ground-based. The other one said it was from satellites. But when they were next to each other, the square reel and the satellite dish, they're both pointing in the same direction. They both look like the same thing. Because they are. But one solder's coming from the sky, one solder's coming from the ground. One eventually had to go, of course, the ground-based one.
Isn't it funny how they can make it seem like such, rigmarole when it's just really cut and dry? And it's the same thing with the cancer industry or the AIDS hoax. They make it seem like it's, oh, your symptoms are so complicated. We haven't discovered what even causes the disease. We don't even know. And the truth is that, oh, it's really simple. It's all about what you eat. We just don't want to tell you that because we want your money.
That's it. I'm sure Barbie or Patricia, I forget which, pointed out that the doctors aren't nutritionists. They're doctors.
No, they don't know anything about nutrition at all. And in fact, the funny thing is, I was a raw vegan for about a decade, and I was doing a lot of kale and a lot of juices, a lot of green kale juices, and I ended up getting kidney stones because of the oxalate in kale. And my husband was doing some research, and he's like, it says here that, like, if you're low on folic acid, that may be the cause for you to, developing kidney stones. And so I'm sitting there in the emergency room dealing with my second of 3 kidney stones, and I asked the doctor, is it true that if I up my, my folic acid intake that I would be less likely to form stones? And he straight up told me, I don't talk about nutrients. I don't talk about nutrition. Don't ask questions like that. I don't know. That's how ignorant they really are.
I mean, I've recently heard it described as the death care system. Would you agree with that statement?
Well, I mean, okay, so I have this opinion about nursing homes, and I've got a lot of people in my life that think that, you know, if you have a loved one that you can't take care of, you can just go ahead and put them in a nursing home. And it's like, oh, they think that because they say, I can't care for her health. No, you want someone to manage her diseases. It's not a healthcare system. It's a symptom management. It's a disease management system. I wish that it were about healing. If it had been about healing, I would still be there. I would be there every day helping to heal people. But it's not. It's about pushing drugs, keeping people ignorant, not addressing root causes, only addressing symptoms, pretending root causes don't exist, pretending the FDA is the authority on the matter, pretending that big pharma is doing really, really good. And I can't pretend those things. I can't pretend any of those things. I'm not that much of a fraud. I can't believe other people can go about doing it.
Fair enough. I'm a little bit lost for words because you remind me of me in many of your mannerisms, and take this as a compliment, which is to say that on the one hand, you're absolutely outraged of these lies, but sometimes you say these things and you've got a smile on your face because if you don't laugh, you'll cry. You know, that's kind of what I get the impression of.
If I don't laugh, I will cry. Like I would almost cry already. If I don't laugh, I will cry. And then let me tell you something about crying. Not only does it make the makeup run, it isn't pretty. It isn't pretty at all. No, we don't want to cry on camera. I will probably once in a while, but no, I'm going to sport my smile until I can't anymore.
Cool. Right, on to one of my favourite subjects before we round out. So I think it's your most recent video, although you've probably boshed out 25 since, so who knows? When this is watched in a month's time, it'll be 100 videos ago. But yeah, you covered psychopathy in your most recent video. I think it's still your most recent video.
It is,
so yeah,
yes.
How did you get interested in that subject?
My parents are psychopaths.
Oh, nice, simple answer. That's usually the case.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're abused by narcissistic abusers, and you looked into it and found out what they were.
It took me so long to find out. I really thought that it was so many other things. I had researched so many other mental disorders. I had probably misdiagnosed my mom 25 times before I found out what narcissism was. And I actually didn't find out that long ago. I actually found out only like 2 years ago.
Well, I have to do this because I'd get a barrage of comments if I didn't. So I interviewed Thomas Sheridan, he's no psychologist or psychotherapist. He's just a guy like you or I. And he basically explained when I said, I think the word you used was disorder. I said similar words to him, and he was very quick to point out to me that cognitively these people are possibly better off than we are. They're not. They don't have a disorder. It's not an illness. That was something he was very quick to point out to me. You know, they're predators for sure, but they're not faulty, if you know what I mean.
I wrote down what it is here. I got this paper out just for you. Narcissism is a maladaptive defense mechanism.
So yeah, I definitely wouldn't phrase that as a disorder then.
Oh no, they're the winners. They think in their head that they're the winners, and no matter what kind of scummy things they do, they don't ever have to come to terms with it, like me and you. Oh, it's like a poem I wrote.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean by possibly being cognitively better off than us. You know, having
exactly.
empathy is very what's the word? It sort of demolishes quite a lot of boundaries that most people would have. There are lines that a psychopath will easily cross without hesitation that most normal people, or 95% of people, would send a cold shiver down their spine to even consider doing some of the things that psychopaths do. So
yeah, if you could just choose to be like one of them, you could, accomplish amazing things. But since, you've got compassion and functioning cortex, you actually run things by yourself before you do this. Even though they would be cognitively better off than we are, I would not want to be one of them. It is a very sad, lonely place.
Yeah, they're living in perpetual misery, you know, torturing themselves into belief of this grandiosity. But
well,
ultimately speaking,
look at Kim Kardashian, for instance. I mean, think about the consequences that she has to deal with being the malignant narcissist that she is. She has to deal with the backlash of wearing 10 skinned dogs in a coat that was made illegally in China. She has to deal with the backlash of not really participating in the rearing of children that she didn't even give birth to. She has to deal with the backlash of being taking, 175 pictures of herself and marketing that as an actual skill. She has to deal with the backlash of faking this multi-million-dollar robbery fraud. So they live in this perpetual fear that their lives will be completely exposed. And they kind of want some of their lives to be exposed because it does amp up their popularity, but they live in perpetual fear that everybody will one day know that they are gold-plated. They are not solid gold. They don't have anything beneath that gold plating, and it becomes apparent over time. And we're watching this play out with multiple celebrities.
I mean, one of the questions we got from chat, feel free not to answer this, but I did ask chat to ask questions in caps, and one of the questions was, what was it that gave you the clue that your parents were psychopaths? Feel free to not answer.
Oh, I didn't know until like I grew up, and I was like, wow, that didn't seem, what they didn't seem right. And I was raised to think that because my mom was a prostitute and a psychopath, that was normal. I really was raised to think that was normal. So just until 2 years ago, I literally was still thinking that was normal. I didn't know that they were psychopaths until I realized, like, as an adult looking back on it, there was something severely missing. And it was all about them caring more about what things looked like than what they really were. They cared more about if the house looked like it supported a family, whether than or not they had an actual family to support. They didn't care about their children. They cared about appearance. They cared about money. They cared so. My mom was so obsessed with cars. She spent like hundreds of thousands of dollars just buying BMWs and Mercedes Benz, and just because she thought, like, oh, I look like a winner if I drive this. Like, you look like a loser because you can't raise your fucking kids right. Like, they don't think about things correctly. And so whenever I grew up, I actually approached my father about it, and I was like, why didn't you get help for my mother? She's insane. And it turned out he didn't get help for her because he's just as insane. I really wouldn't have any example of normal cognitive function in my life if it weren't for my husband.
So this question will make sense to anybody who's had a psychopath in their life, but do you still have contact with them?
My parents and I are currently 100% no contact.
Yeah, this is an idea that's very much, it's not a new idea, but the idea of having no contact ever again with somebody that comes into your life that turns out to be a psychopath, or as it gets phrased by some people, narcissist. And that's the only really way to win, to completely distance yourself from them, have no further contact whatsoever under any circumstances. The problem being that occasionally they come back into your life and try and force you to have contact with them. And unfortunately, the same principle still applies. You still have to be disciplined and have no further contact with them in order to keep yourself sane. Because, I'm going to say this, I'm allowed, they're monsters. That's the bottom line.
They're monsters.
We've gone over a little bit the hour I was hoping we'd keep this to, but was there anything you wanted to add, Daphne? Was there anything you wanted to plug? Please give out your channel name. I know it's just your name, but just give any other details. Maybe there's Instagram accounts and things that you've got that people would like to link to. If you can just plug any of those, that'd be wonderful.
All I have is an Instagram account and a YouTube account, and they're both under the name Daphne Rimmel. And the only person that I'm interested in plugging is Sunny Peaches 77. She pumps out some of the most thoughtful videos, especially her latest like love letter to NASA. I want to go ahead and plug that. She is so intelligent. I know that, you know, from a pretty girl perspective, it's hard to be taken seriously. It's hard to get people to think that maybe you have functioning brains. But Sunny Peaches has a functioning brain, and she's an amazing individual. She really has helped me. I want to plug her channel to the fullest. I actually plugged it 3 times on Mark's show because I just love her so much.
Well, the same thing has to be said for the chat here. There's been plenty. When I said any questions, there was, can I get a phone number? Does she have a sister? So, you know, there's enough love for you in that chat. That's for sure.
I've got a sister, but she's a psychopath like my mother and also a whore. So if you want warts, yeah, I'll give you her number.
Superb. On that note, Daphne, I'll say a massive thank you for being on Flat Earth United Kingdom. It's been a real pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
And yeah, I will put a link to one of your videos in the description box below this video, so you can click on that as a viewer and subscribe to Daphne Rimmel. Massive thank you to all of you who have joined us in the live chat. Like, comment, and subscribe. I've been Nathan Oakley. I'll see you all in the next video.